You know it. Yeah, that's the music. Busted pencils fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. Dr. Johnny Lupinacci, Jacob, chairman of the boards, me, Dr. Tim Slekar. It is a class is in session. Man, we got a class because our guest, where was she when those teachers, Johnny, those bad math teachers like you,
No, don't group me in there, Tim.
well, you were, that caused such paranoia and sadness in my life that even today, at the ripe old age of 38, um, give or take,
Always these excuses for
give or take
for your
20
struggles,
years.
Tim, for your difficult journey through math
Ugh,
education.
but I to this day I still call myself, one of those bad math students, and more I'm starting to realize that maybe part of it might not have been all my fault. So yeah, class is in session. Today's guest is someone, yeah, she reminds us that teaching isn't just about the standards and outcomes. It's about magic, curiosity, and the small moments that matter. She is Suzy Scudder, longtime classroom teacher and math interventionist. Hey, she noticed something curious. Kids were skipping the number 13 when counting backwards. Instead of blaming all the places you typically would blame, Johnny, she did something. She wrote a book. She wrote a story. It's called Count Upon Your Friends. It's a beautifully illustrated book. She's got a lot to talk about. Welcome to Busted Pencils, Suzy Scudder. How are you, Suzy?
I'm great, thank you.
Wow. So, okay. Before we get into the book, though, classroom teacher, how long were you a classroom teacher?
So I taught fourth grade. Well, I taught 1 year of second grade and then fourth grade for 17 years.
Oh, nice. Fourth
Yep.
grade. Yeah.
Fourth grade's
Um,
a good age. Nice age.
I was gonna no, I didn't do fourth grade. I did fifth grade, and I was gonna say fifth grade was a great age, but I also
Yep.
remember the fourth grade. Something special about that age group.
Yep.
With their 17, and then the math interventionist. Is that a license you earned, or
It's
is
not
that
a
you
license.
more kind of going like, wait a minute, I'm here to intervene?
Yeah, no. It's an actual job, but it's not a license. Like reading interventionist or reading specialist is a separate license. Math interventionist, and it's possible this changed in the last 5 years, but when I was doing it, it wasn't a license, but we had a lot of extra training
Okay.
in math. And so I was trained in something called AVMR, which is just a dumb acronym, so I'm not going to bother with it. But what we would do is we would do individual tests, like interview tests with kids. So the kids would have no pencil and paper. They'd just be talking to us, and we'd ask them to do something, and then they'd do it. And mainly what we were watching for was what could they do and how did they do it, because that would tell us a lot about like what they needed next.
Mm.
And that was where I literally did thousands of interviews with
I
kids.
bet.
And I was noticing a lot of them were going 15, 14, 12, 11, 10.
That's so great, Susie. I love this. So let's dive right into it. Count upon your friends. Tim said you wrote this book. Tell us a little bit. Why did you write Count About Your Friends?
Yep. So while I was teaching, we had this thing called the Scholastic Book Fair every year, and every school does. And the teachers get some free books. And so I'd always go to the library going, oh, good, what are my free books going to be? Well, I was kind of limited because they had to be math stuff. And most of the math stuff were books that counted to 10. Maybe they went backwards, maybe they didn't. And I was like, okay, all the kids can already do this. And so for years, I was just waiting for someone to write a book that went like to 13, forward and backward. And nobody did. And, there are books out there that do go beyond 10, but I really wanted it to go up to 13 and then back. And so that's why I wrote the book. And I set it on a staircase because stairs typically are 13s.
You know what? I didn't, I don't know how many times I've counted steps, but I
Right.
didn't know that there was
Yeah.
a magic number in
Mhm.
the 13 for that.
I
So,
think it has to do with, like, rise and run and, what the laws are about how steep the steps can be, and so it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's typical, standard
John,
maybe.
Johnny, comment on that. You're our tradesperson and
Well,
math teacher.
no, exactly is related to regulations and slope and how steep
Yeah.
a staircase can be, right? And 13
Yep.
stairs at the standard amount, safely. Don't put us at too steep of a climb or too steep of a descent as well. But Susan,
Yeah, well,
What
it's
a bad
Susie.
time for that to happen, don't
Yeah,
you think?
that comes
Right as
in,
the
but
question
there
begins.
he is. Wait, he's back. Go ahead, Dr.
Okay.
Lupinacci.
yeah, I was gonna ask why is it so important to count beyond 10?
Yeah, because so when kids first start adding and subtracting, the way they do it, they start out actually counting from 1, and then eventually they do something called counting on. So if they realize that if they've got 6 of something and they need 5 more, they can go 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay? But if you're counting backwards and you're subtracting and you're skipping a number every time you subtract, you're always going to be off by one number. So I sometimes had 4th graders who didn't hit the 13 when they counted backward, and they're 10 years old. Now I'm not talking in my classroom, I'm talking when I did intervention.
Mhm.
And so I made a little sock puppet and I wrote the number 13 on it, and they would start counting. This is not during the testing, but during just our practice times. They would start counting and they'd go 15, 14, and I'd go, "Don't forget me." And they'd look at me and they'd go 13. And then eventually I could get where I just like put my hand up a little bit and they'd go 13, and then eventually they just got it, So it's just, I think 11, 12, and 13, they call them the tricky teens because
Mm,
once you get to 4, 14, 15, 16, 17, they all sound like what they
mm,
are. And
Hmm.
in Asian languages, it's a whole lot easier because they just go 10, 10, 1, 10, 2, 10, 3, 10, 4, and then
mm.
20 is 210. So like if
Mhm.
we had that, it would be so much easier than
Well,
trying to teach.
this is fascinating. Maybe why so many people I know when I was growing up had trichodexophobia, right? Fear of the number 13. Maybe that was
Yeah,
embedded somewhere in there.
yeah,
But I think this
exactly.
generation of young people love the number 13 because of a particular musical artist
Yes,
who also loves the number 13. And
right.
Susie, I love this book going up and back down from 13 and all the ways you connected it to the ways 13 is in our life. So helping people overcome their trichodexophobia. Tim loves when I use those big words, but also with some mathematical intention here. I
Yes,
love that. I mean,
thank
Tim,
you.
can we dive into it? Can we ask
Well,
Susie, like,
I was gonna say,
tell us
okay, like
without
Susie, yeah,
spoiling it?
yeah,
Yeah.
we got the
I
math
mean,
there, but I mean, jump
yeah,
into like the
the
story,
story.
the
Okay,
staircase, the
so
boy, the
so the
animals. Get
story
into it.
is, yeah, I'll tell you. The story is a little boy, his name's Harry, and um he's like 4 years old-ish, and he's trying to get ready to go to bed, but he's down in the basement and he's a little bit afraid to walk up the steps. They're kind of steep. And so he tells his mom, I can't climb up all those stairs. They're too steep and I'm too scared. And so she says, well, we'll find a friend for every step, and each step you go up, we'll put a friend there and they'll help you get up. So he goes around the room and he picks up all his stuffed animals and each one helps him up a step. And then he gets to the top and he says, well, now I'm too tired to like do anything with them. And he's like, how about you, mom? Can you go get them all and bring them up to me? And she's like, no, I'm exhausted. So they go to bed. And then, of course, there has to be magic, right? So the animals
Mhm.
come alive. And the sloth is the one on the highest step. He's up on 13. And the animals, first off, the animals kind of sit in the dark for a little while and for 2 full sets of, 2 pages. And then the sloth says, because Harry had said they're not going to want to sleep there. And the sloth says, yeah, Harry's right. These stairs are creepy. and I'm getting tired and very sleepy.
Mm.
Um, and then he says, I can't think exactly how he says it, but it's basically he says, we'll use my hammock as a sled. And so they slide down. He's got a hammock from where he was sitting before this all started. And so then they slide down and they count backwards as they go down. And that, excuse me, then, and the next morning, um, Harry and his mom come down to put them away, and they're all like back on the shelf where they slept over the night. And they just kind of have these looks on their faces like, oh my goodness, what happened here? And so then the end of the book is followed by there's a song that it's really just the alphabet song, but it's with numbers instead. And that counts forward and backward to 21. And then there's a page of activities that parents can do with their kids to try and help them, get ready for math.
What's awesome though too here, and it makes sense, age appropriate, but being an elementary school teacher originally too, I mean, the whole idea of children's literature, it's just something we were immersed in, and yeah, in counting books. We're kind of like, I don't know, freshman, maybe sophomore year, elementary education, children's literature. You start going over the counting books and looking at that. And I agree, they always went to 10.
Yep.
But I mean, but the whole idea of children's literature is that there, again, there's something with the words. They touch a base. You're teaching something, but it's visual. And for
Mhm.
this, you were able to find an illustrator. Tell us a little bit about the illustrator and how that
Yeah.
worked.
So
There you
let me
go.
just hold it up, and then I'm going to show you a couple of my favorites. And this is one of my very favorite pictures. I don't know if you can get that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But so her name is Ann Bamberg, and she lives in Madison, and she uses watercolor and colored pencil to do the pictures. So they're kind of soft, but they have like a ton of detail. If you can, when you see the book in person, if you look at like the pages with the monkeys, you can see like every little hair that she put
Mm.
on the monkeys. And so we met in kind of a funny way. I have a sister, Debbie, and my sister Debbie and my friend Kathy were taking a walk in Middleton during a snowstorm. And they were downtown on Parmenter, and they saw this woman up on a ladder painting a mural on a window in a snowstorm. So of course they had to stop and talk to her and say, "What are you doing?" And there's this thing in Middleton called the Story Walk, and so she was painting. I don't know if you guys know the one, The Mitten, Jan Brett book. It's where all the animals go inside the mitten, and then finally the mouse goes inside, and the whole mitten explodes, and all the animals come tumbling out. So she was painting that on all these different store windows, like different scenes from it. So she was painting animals, like just beautiful animals. And so she didn't get her number, but she got where she worked. And then Debbie, immediately went home and said, "You got to call this woman." And so I called her, and she said, we met for coffee. And so she said, "I've always wanted to do a children's book, but I've never done one." And so
Mm.
she had done a lot of different art things, and she just had never done that. And so this is her first book too.
That's first of all, for anybody listening outside, Madison, Middleton, we're talking about Wisconsin, and so the fact that she's outside painting a mural in a Wisconsin winter, um,
In a on a ladder.
on a ladder. Okay,
And when I
that's
heard that, I was kind of like, okay, this is my kind of person.
this is a dedicated artist. So the fact that you were going, and I'm probably sure you said, and you don't have to do the illustrations outside.
Right. No, she was like, oh, good, something I can do from my kitchen, my living room or whatever.
You know what? This wasn't part of the questions you had kind of had as
Yeah.
anticipate, but it makes me just think though about for teachers out there, especially we talk to teachers like, boy, I want to write a book, or they have written some things down. They've got ideas, they want to get
Yeah.
them down like that. How explain a little bit about going like, how do they make that real? How does that happen? How do they work with an illustrator in that sense, because I know, teachers have so many stories. They have so many things that,
Right.
but you did it, and that's one of those
Yeah.
things, and we like to hear from teachers who have written books, who we do the other thing, they ran for office,
Yep.
and we said, instead of, oh well, I could never do that, it's like, well, yes you could. In fact,
Yeah.
Susie, tell us how you did it.
Yeah. So, so the process was really just I had to explain a lot to her because, I could show her the writing, I could show her the dialogue of the book, but I really had a vision in my head of what all these animals looked like because a lot of them were real stuffed animals, like either that I had grown up with or that like my nephews had had when they were little kids. The two monkeys were Nick and Kellen, my nephews, they were their monkeys. And and some of those animals we still had, like Cooper Duck, we still had, so I could show it to her. My dog had chewed his face, his like beak off, but she could imagine, what that looked like. And then a couple of my nephews still had their animals, and so we could just show them to her. So then, otherwise, I kind of described them, and I would like go online and find, just do images and find something that looked as close as I could get, and it's just unbelievable how close she came to what I was picturing. And then there were some things that she kind of tweaked and changed a bit, and it made it better. So it was really a collaboration.
So then too, though, you get all this work. I mean, I got another teacher out there going, yeah, but publisher, how do you
That
do
was
that stuff, Susie?
that was tricky because I didn't want to sit around and wait. You can get an agent, and then an agent can go and find a publisher that wants to pay you for your book and blah blah blah. I didn't have the patience for all that. So I just found a publisher. So I don't honestly know if I'm considered self-published or hybrid or what. I paid the publisher $500 and they got the book, made the book for me.
Hmm.
So, I paid them,
Yeah.
so I guess I'm self-published.
No, I
Um,
would say Susie, it's a combination and it's more
like
common
a
these
hybrid.
days. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
self-published would be like if you just threw this together and put it up on Amazon and you were,
Okay.
you and your people were the only ones who looked at it.
Okay.
I believe this is with am I correct? Seven Sisters Press?
Yeah, but see,
Yeah.
Seven Sisters Press, I made
Yeah,
up.
that's very no,
So
it's
when I
not
was a
because
kid, no, I
really?
mean, yeah, like that's called my
Oh,
imprint.
oh.
So when I was a kid, we had seven of us that were best friends, and we called ourselves the Seven Sisters, which is, I forget if
Oh,
it's
you
the
know what?
North
I'm
Star, but it's a
confusing it. I
constellation.
Yeah, I'm confusing it, Susie, with Seven Stories Press.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, no, that's
This is
just like a
fantastic.
made
This
up
is on a
thing.
huge publisher."
No,
Okay. No, but I
not
love
at
that
all.
Seven Sisters Press. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with all of I love how, you went around that long and lengthy process there, to share this method that you've, really worked with children over the years, developing and then getting it directly out to whether it's parents or teachers or schools, you know, at a cost that's totally affordable to have in every classroom, right? So if you're a
Mhm.
teacher out there thinking about this, it's so often that pretty much the only books I can get from my classroom are what I earned through Scholastic. Well, this one,
Right.
isn't
And I looked into
$70.
that, but right, I looked into that, but Scholastic you can only do if you're like with their press,
Oh yeah.
which
Oh yeah. It's a
so no.
big, it's well, maybe someday they'll buy this off Seven
Well, you never
Sisters and
know.
it'll be
Yeah.
your springboard into Seven Sisters becoming a giant press. But
There you
uh
go.
but Susie, for the listener out there, whether you're a teacher or you're a parent, you're listening and you're still thinking about this counting forwards and backwards thing. I love it. I think it's brilliant. Um, like, how do we know who this book is for? Like, what's something we could do to kind of ask ourselves, who is Count Upon Your Friends intended for? Like, how do I
Yeah,
know what the age level is?
let me just grab my notes because I kind of came up with what was happening was I'd be at a like a book event and I would be
Hmm.
talking to parents and they'd say like, oh well, I have a 4-year-old and I'm like that's perfect and they'd be like, but they can already count. This one can count to 50. And
Yeah.
I was kind of like, okay, but have them start at 7 and count forward.
Mhm.
Because it's very likely that if you say start at 7 and count forward, they're just going to look at you because
Mhm.
nobody's ever asked them not to start at 1. So kids would all the time tell me, Mrs. Scudder, I can count all the way to 100, which they could if they started at 1. But that's really not anything. That's just kind of a memorized thing. They don't have any understanding of what they're talking about. So really, it's for little kids, it's way more important that between like 1 and 30, not for real little kids, but by the time they're 5, between like 1 and 30, that they can count from any number forward or backward.
Hmm.
So I came up with just a couple little things that if you were a parent and you were thinking like, well, is it worth it to buy this book? If you said to your kid, start at 6 and count forward and let him count to 14, and then say start at 21 and count it backward, and you can stop them at 11.
Mhm.
If in any of those cases they can't do it, or they do it but they're like really not fluent, or they hesitate, like let's say they get to counting backward, they get what would happen is they'd go 21, 20, and then they'll look up at the sky, and then 2 seconds later they'll go 19, 18, 17.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's that decade number, like the 10, 20, 30. Those are really hard for them, especially backwards. And then
And
same thing, like 13 is always tricky too.
well, I love this. So that's what's special about this is like it can be maybe the actual words are below or you're above their reading level. It's not so much looking at the
Right.
lexicon here. It's the mathematical sort of fluency, the numerical
Mhm.
fluency that you're developing. And think about it, whether you're, in piano lessons and you're practicing scales, right? Or whether you're an athlete and you do your warm-up stretches and you're like you go for a run. These are skills that our kids may be able to do, but they are sort of important for like the brain workout. Like the
Right.
as a
And
math
like,
teacher, I'm big on this. Like,
yes,
what are our warm-ups? How are we getting
right.
getting down with numbers today? This
Yeah.
is what
And
this
in
is
this
what
case,
Tim
it's
hates
like,
about me.
Yeah, man.
yeah.
Numbers. Yeah, they get me down, man.
Well,
And
we used to
in
do
this case,
things
it's
like,
totally like these are the foundations
yep,
that all of
yes.
math is built upon. And so it's like if you don't get them and then
Yep.
you're trying, so that was what was hard about my job. Was I was always working with the kids that were really far behind and just trying to get them to catch up, and then trying to get them to, kind of springboard off from
Mhm.
there was really hard. But if I'd have been able to work with them preschool or
Mhm.
kindergarten, the kids I could work with in kindergarten or even first, that's where you can do this. I've got a lot of people, because I'm kind of old. I have a lot of grandparent friends that have bought the book, and they're all sending me pictures of, I've got one who sent me pictures of plates on the stairs with the numbers on, and then they're putting stuffed animals by every. I mean, they're basically acting out the book. And then I have just other ones of them reading to their kids, showing the kids. I had one who said, this is a woman I used to job share with. Her 4-year-old grandson was teaching her 2-year-old grandson or granddaughter the numbers as they went. He'd be doing like, this is 2, this is 3, so showing her with his fingers what was going on in the story. And it's like, that's amazing, and
Mm.
like using fingers is another thing. That's another really important skill that kids need to do. And sometimes parents will try and get them to stop doing that. And like, I'll work with them and they'll be like hiding their fingers under the table. I'm like, no, I want to see your fingers. That's a tool. That's something you need to use. It's perfect for you to use.
My
Mhm.
goodness, the fact that you're saying your fingers were perfect to use, I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember, a couple of my elementary school teachers were like, and
Yeah.
I don't want to see any fingers out.
I know.
You know,
Things have
me-
really changed.
yeah. Meanwhile,
I hope. I
Yeah,
hope.
well, I'd have them down under my butt, and I'd be like
Yeah,
pushing one, counting.
yeah. No, I
What,
know.
Johnny? You had to
I've
sit on.
seen it all.
Well, because
Yeah.
we had a teacher that would be like, okay, all hands, under your bottoms.
Oh my
Like
God.
that would stop us from counting. And I was like, well, I can figure this out. Susie, love
Wow.
all this, so much going on. Where can people get the book? Tell us in ways that they can support you.
Yeah.
Let's first get people hooked up.
Yeah, sure. Um, so it's available online. So it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And then just by happenstance, I noticed it was on Walmart as well,
Oh,
which
Nice.
I never even knew that. Yeah. And it's at a few bookstores. It's at Leopold's, the Regal Find in Middleton, Booth 121 in McFarland, and Kismet Books in Verona. So it's at
mhm.
those bookstores. And then if they email me, if they live around here,
Hmm.
I can get them a little better price. And it actually is a way better deal for me. And the email address is just countuponyyourfriends@gmail.com.
Nice. Well,
Love
that's
it.
going to be all of the things too. Jacob will make sure that they're in the show descriptions, all those links, so people can get
Okay.
those there. And Susie, just before we go though, Johnny brought it up, the number 13, 13 being special. And I know you kind of have wondering if, through the listenership of Busted Pencils, if anybody has any connections. Who's that connection you're looking for?
Well, so I am not a Taylor Swift person, but I found out that Taylor Swift's favorite number is 13. And then when I started looking, into her a little bit, like I think her company is called something with 13 in it. And like, oh, wouldn't it be great if somebody, and it could be me if I could figure out how, could give her the book. And
Oh,
so I'm just trying to find a person who could either hook me up with her or even if she just found out about the book, that there's this book out there that has 13 sort of as its central tenet, then maybe she'd look into it herself.
I didn't even know that you were kind of connecting dots on that. I just know that this generation of young people, they like really love the number 13. And I asked them why, and they said, well, Taylor Swift's favorite number, duh. And I'm thinking, okay, well, it was much different than when I was a kid. Number 13, like everyone was like, it's bad luck.
Right.
Don't even say the number 13.
Yeah. Well,
But
or like how they in elevators, they won't put the number in the floor 13. They'll
right.
skip it. And it's sort of
mm,
like,
Well,
okay, but there's still a 13th floor, even if you don't call it that.
Well, I love this. And Susie, before we cut ways with you and for our listeners, I mean, you mentioned where they can get the book, how they can connect with you via email, but you got anything coming up, especially for our local listeners over there in Wisconsin? Any events
Yeah.
or anything? Because that's always fun too, just to connect with local authors and see the book and maybe do some read aloud. What's happening?
Yeah. So I have a couple of story times. One's at Kismet Books in Verona, the 4th of October, and a story time at Ink and Ivy on Regent Street.
Nice.
That's the 18th of October. And then I'm going to the Wanakee Farm Market on
Ooh,
this coming Wednesday. And there's something called Picnic on the Patio. I did it once at Bloom Bake Shop on the east side. That's really fun. That's on October 7th. And then I applied to be in this thing called the Madison Makers Black Friday Market, but I don't know yet. That's on
let's
Black
see
Friday.
that.
I don't know if I got in or not.
And just for everybody too, that's in the Madison, Wisconsin area where these
Yeah,
events are.
yeah.
So everybody
And
can, if they can get out
For our
there.
local listeners.
Yeah.
and
For
they
our
could also check out my Facebook page, which is the same name, Count Upon Your Friends. I'm not very good at Facebook yet, so it's mostly just there's some pictures and it's like a few lists of things like what I just said, but
well,
it would be some information.
nice. Well, the book is Count Upon Your Friends, the author, Suzy Scudder. Susie, here's what Johnny and I always have to say. And Jacob, thanks for busting pencils with us.
You're welcome. Thank you guys.
And now it's time for your moment of Zen. History can untie our minds, our bodies, our disposition to move, to engage life rather than contemplating it as an outsider.
And now, listeners, we're going to count backwards from the number. I'm just kidding. Thanks for listening to Busted Pencils class in session today. And you can always grab great podcasts like this one. Just head on over and search Busted Pencils on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or of course, you can always find us on the Civic Media website or on our website at bustedpencils.com. And don't forget to find us throughout the week, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday with homerooms, class in session, and always loads of fun to wrap up the work week with Jacob's Producer's Choice. And listen up, pencil busters. You can always catch Busted Pencils at 3 p.m. Central Time across all the Civic Media Network stations for 1 hour of your favorite blue-collar scholars, Tim and Johnny, and keep busting pencils.